customer reaches out to an organization to solve a problem, or he comes with a grievance, who owns that problem? That problem, is it the problem of customer service head, or the finance department, or sales, or marketing, or operations, or network? Who owns it? Or is it owned by the customer service head? So honestly speaking, every complaint that comes is owned by the customer service head. But again, there are blurry lines, and the responsibility to resolve is that with the concerned department, and therefore I think in a matrix kind of organization, which every organization in some form is, as much as we may say that no, it's a flat organization, clearly defined lines, you have matrix everywhere, and I think that's the evolution of an organization at a level of maturity when you're able to differentiate in ownership, and I think blurry lines will always be there in responsibility, because ultimately there will be one person who's responsible to do that activity, but he's dependent on somebody else, and so that's my second perspective on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Blurry lines will always be there. One of the companies that I am advising right now, so they have a very interesting problem. So they have a full management structure in place. They have a CPO, a chief engineering officer, all the hierarchy in place. And they also have promoters who can't let go, right? So they have a big problem, really. So the promoters, they are getting into the day-to-day aspects of the business. No, you shouldn't build that feature. I know how to build that feature because I did it 30 years back. So you need to do it this way. And the chief product officer is sitting and trying to convince the promoter, but he is the promoter. No, I have more experience than this is what you know. Where the lines are totally blurred, gray, water flowing all over them. That's what is happening. And I had to, as part of my role, I gave them a list of things that they should be working on. And one of the things which I know may not ever happen is that everything needs to come. For example, requirements need to come through a chief product officer. They need to get some sanity into the lines, because otherwise the developers and the people on the ground, they are suffering. They hear from 3 different people, 3 different things to do, and their priorities keep shifting every day. As a result, they are told that they do not have enough velocity and their outcome is low. The output is low. But it's not their problem, because there are 3 different people telling them what you need to do, and this is changing every day. So it's such a complex situation for them, and the only way they can really go forward, and what I told them is that you have to get a CPO and everything has to be routed through that one person. You really cannot have 20 people trying to define the product directly. It doesn't work that way. Then you will always have chaos. So I'm just trying to say with this example is that yes, blurry lines exist everywhere, but I think it's the organization's responsibility to try and make it them as much clear as possible.
Wonderful. I mean, I think your example was so dot on. This exists specifically in owner-run organizations. Very, very big problem. I have a mentee of mine, a very, very brilliant guy. He was senior vice president and responsible for a very large business of Axis Bank. Okay, and he spoke to me and he got an opportunity there. He was responsible for one business in multiple verticals. He was getting to work for a Pune-based NBFC, almost 2,500 crore book they have, of becoming the chief business officer. So almost like owning the entire business, So he was like in two minds. He spoke to me and, kind of took my advice, and I warned him. I said, Dekh, Axis Bank, professionally run organization. Malik ko malum nahi ki tum kaun ho, aur tumko malum nahi Malik kaun hai. Tum kaam kar rahe ho, what you are responsible for and what the organization needs to deliver. You are focusing on that. Here you are reporting to the owner. Bichare ka takdeer itna kharab. Within 6 months of taking over, the owner's wife got involved in the business. And those lines became so blurred that he said, I had no role to play. So I think owner-run business is very important for owners to actually go through, a formal program in understanding where to draw the line on ownership. Because Exactly. Very, very important.
Yeah, trust me. I mean, this is very close to my heart. But I cannot tell you why. But I'm facing very similar issues in my business today.
Any owner you talk to, I'm telling you, or an employee who works for an owner will give you.
But I think it boils down to that one word that you use, which is trust. See, I mean, I remember when we got to a size where we needed some HR intervention. So we got a HR consultant who came and did this whole workshop, and he made this one statement which then sounded, like one of those eureka moments. He says, "Do you realize that everybody in your organization is working 1 or 2 levels below their role, and including you? I mean, you're supposed to be the founder, CEO." कंपनी स्टार्टअप्स में सीईओ वीओ का कोई ये नहीं रहता, बट you are supposed to be looking after strategy, but you are working 2 levels down where you are telling your salesperson how to go and sell. And essentially it boils down to trust. I mean, do I trust that person to go and do the job and get that result, or am I so worried that I'm going to go down and say कि तेरे से नहीं होने वाला, मैं करके दिखाता हूँ. And on the lateral side, so one is vertical where everybody typically tends to work levels down. On the lateral side, again, is the same thing. I mean, do I, you use that Navy SEAL example, right? And nowadays you have a lot of these special forces guys who come and give these very interesting podcasts. And when they go in for missions, it's the level of understanding that they have between each other is so strong that, you don't even need to have any communication. Everybody knows when to do what, and everybody knows when not to overstep. So on a lateral side, I might have extreme ownership and I might go and say, मैं तेरा काम कर देता हूँ. But that's not necessarily right, because then again, I'm saying that, boss, I think I can do your job better than you can, right? So it all boils down to trust. I think that one word sums it all up. Lines get blurry when you do not trust the person either below you or, on your lateral side. In terms of them being able to deliver to their expectations.
And just to add to that, I think it happens to all of us when we become first-time managers. It is difficult to let go. It's not a question of trust at that point in time, but you don't know how to let go. You feel you can do the job better than your team member who, I have to train him, I have to spend 3 days with him, I'll finish it in 1 day. Why I spent, 3 days with him? And then my mentor really taught me that, if you want to scale, if you want to grow, then you need to let go, and that's how you build that trust. You learn to let go, and that is how you end up taking more responsibilities.
So yeah, just building on the example that you gave during my some early days of my career when I was growing in the organization. So it was very clear. I always used to wonder, why am I not growing with the organization and stagnated at a position? I'm doing my job really well, and stakeholders are happy, everything is going well, but why am I not getting a growth? And that was my first point of learning, that just by doing your piece well will not get you growth, right? You have to step up, take up some more ownership, step in places which is really a need area of, you have to identify and step up to take that up, which has to be beyond your comfort zone. And then, see how you deliver there is what gets you visibility. And of course, then that was my learning, and that's how I gradually grew in my organization. But coming to the point that you're making, I think when the lines are blurry, when you're not very sure who is the owner or who is going to take it, I think that's also an opportunity for people who take that initiative and grow up or own up. And that's the time when you probably identify leaders who might be not so visible because maybe they're not always there with you, right? But you see them, you see how they're stepping up to take up a responsibility. I can give an example. One of my organizations, it's an MNC bank, and they wanted to change the culture and bring a lot of changes, increase their revenue, bring a lot of cultural changes. So they got some people, from some other organization which was pretty aggressive. And the organization for which I used to work were more on empathy, they would work more on people side. So they were a little slow in growth, whereas people who came in, so the group CEO who came in was from an aggressive bank, okay, and he got a lot of his people, so all of them aggressive, right? They went for the meeting, they took some data, they asked questions, some people could not answer, and they started firing people left, right, and center. So, a lot of senior people were fired. The India CEO was also fired. And then we were all at loss, like, what's going to happen next. And that was the time when some people, despite taking that heat, still stepped up. And eventually he became the CEO of the India organization. So, yeah, that was a good learning, and he used to be my boss. So, the learning that I got to grow in the organization also came from him, and I realized, stepping up sometimes is really required. You take the heat, but you move forward to say, okay, raise your hand and say, I'll own up, even if you're not the owner for it. So.
Beautiful. So, yeah, very good examples, and thank you very much for bringing up the real world examples from your own organizations, because that's what gives us the, learning, and that helps us more than the, talking just on the abstract level. So, before we close the session, maybe one sentence from each one of you, to just the final remark on this blurring boundaries of ownership, or, how does ownership can get affected when the priorities are shifting. Just before we close the session, one last remarks from all of you.
I think I told it earlier, share your ownership with everyone as much you can, and that blur will become little more less blur.
Yeah, I'll stick to what I said. Delegation with trust is my biggest lesson that I've learned in the corporate in all my years of experience. So blurring lines will only happen with, delegating with trust.
I'll say, operation successful, patient died. So, it's very important that, the outcome should be cumulatively northwards, and everybody should be, seeing a sense of growth is what I'll call it, the success of a leader.
So, two things, learn to understand when to let go. That's the first most important thing. And then the other thing is ownership, and the world is going to be blurry, so you'll never have a perfect world, you'll never have a, take time to hire people, be careful of whom you are getting as a person responsible to drive that activity. But once you get him, trust him completely. Let him fail, it's okay. That much control you need to have around the organization to let him fail, and obviously coach him, counsel him. If he shapes up, great, otherwise change him. But trust him and give him that responsibility, and learn to withdraw. I think very important to kill those blurry lines.
Yeah, I think just two things. Just you need to know when to step up, and you need to know, like you said, when to let go. Just these two things.
Same, responsibility, accountability, trust. I think that's what defines ownership, and very important, like learn to let go.
Yeah, I would say build a culture where there is trust and people feel like an owner, so they take their responsibility, with that sense of, being invested in it, for that matter. And second, learn when to step up, because lines will always be blurry, and that's your opportunity as well. So grab that opportunity.